Megalodon Media News. We give you all the news nobody is talking about.
Megalodon Media.
It's the Megalodon.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the channel, Megalodon Media News. Today, we're going to be talking about the Ouija board and how Ouija boards really work. So sit back, relax, like and subscribe, and comment if you ever played with one before. You have probably either tried it yourself or you heard of others who have. One or more participants sit across from each other with their fingers on the glass. Around the glass are numbers and letters. A spirit is summoned. You ask questions, and the glass begins to move from one letter to the next to spell out the response. K-N-I-F-E. Perhaps you were absolutely certain that it was not you who moved the glass, and everyone else had the same feeling. So who did? A spirit? A ghost? All right. So here comes the breaking news. No, it was not a spirit. It was actually you. Yes, you. Or rather, it was you and your friends that unconsciously collaborated to select the letters. Yes, it wasn't a spirit. In a new study, scientists from the Aarhus University in Denmark, the University of Southern Denmark, and Bielefeld University in Germany have identified precisely what happens when the glass moves. Lead author on the new study, Mark Anderson, a postdoc from the Interactive Mind Center at Aarhus University, had long wondered, how can a group of people, each with a finger on the glass, spell out a meaningful word and still be convinced that they didn't do it? So, in 2015, he packed his bag with a notebook, a video camera, and eye tracking equipment, and he set off for Baltimore in the United States with a research assistant. They were headed to a conference for people that communicate with the dead via Ouija boards. Instead of glass, they use a triangular piece of plastic called a planchette. Planchette is Latin for small plank. It moves around the board and points to letters, numbers, and individual words such as yes or no. Anderson recruited 40 participants who wore eye tracking equipment, which followed the participants' eye movements as they navigated the board. The seance was also recorded. The results are published in the scientific journal Phenomenology and the Cognitive Sciences. The big reveal? Participants sat in pairs, and they were instructed to do two things: to spell the word Baltimore, two, to conduct a Ouija board session as usual. As you might expect, when the participants spelled out Baltimore, they looked at the next letter ahead of time before moving the planchette to that letter. In other words, they could easily predict where the planchette would end up. But when they moved on to the second task, it was much more difficult for the individual participants to predict where the planchette will move. And that's when they played as usual. And here is the paradox. How can the participants be unable to predict the word that will be spelled out? Hence, the belief that a spirit did it, when more than 100 years of research shows that the participants are clearly moving the glass themselves. Anderson explains they figured out what was happening not by looking at each individual's eye movements, but by looking at the combined eye movements of each pair of players. Tracking the combined eye movements of two players turned out to be as good a predictor of where the planchette would end up as tracking just one player's eye movement when they are purposely spelling out a known word, as in the Baltimore exercise. So, while an individual player cannot predict where the planchette will move, the combined eye movement of the pair of players reveals what the spirit will write, especially after the first few letters, which seem to occur at random. What is so fascinating about this phenomenon is that individual participants exhibit great difficulties in predicting what the spirit is trying to tell them. But as soon as we look at the participants as a collective entity, we see how meaningful responses are still able to emerge out of the interaction with each other, says Anderson. Our study solves the apparent paradox. Participants, on the hand, that are producing the Ouija responses themselves, while they are, on the other hand, unable to predict those very same responses at an individual level. In that sense, you could say that the spirit is actually a representation of the collective we. The Baltimore experiment also shows that people who believe that the Ouija board can be used to contact the dead are also more likely to believe that the planchette moves itself, compared to those who are more skeptical. This pattern fits Anderson's previous experimental research using virtual reality. In this study, as participants walked through a virtual reality forest, those who expected to encounter something supernatural were more likely to report experiencing it afterwards. This is thought to be due to the effects of expectations on our conscious experience of the world around us. Thank you for watching.
Connection established.
Megalodon Media.
It's the Megalodon.